Hello and welcome to another quick to the point After Effects tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be continuing the series where we turn this shot into a burning building scene. So just to recap, in the first tutorial we removed this car as well as this alarm box here. We added these windows and we created a clean plate, as seen here. In the second tutorial we used the rotor brush tool to create a mask around Chris here. And in this tutorial we're going to add some damage to these windows. For the sake of keeping this short, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on these windows here. And in between this tutorial and the next one, I'll go ahead and propagate that throughout all the other windows so that you're not just watching me do the same thing over and over and over again. Since the last tutorial, I've finished off the roto creating a clean mask around Chris. Here's a little green solid layer I've got which helps me see how well the mask is doing. And it's not 100% perfect, but after we've comped everything in, we're going to be doing a nighttime conversion. We're going to be having lots of fire, lots of light wrap. We won't see any imperfections in this map when we're finished with it. Okay, so to start this off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the background here and I'm going to mask out these windows. So just going to zoom in nice and tight. And with the pen tool selected, I'm just going to go in and I am going to draw a mask around the windows. Okay, we're just going to set the mask to none so that we can see what we're working with and just move down. So if you're unaware what I'm doing, I'm just holding the H key to bring up the hand so I can move the shot around in the viewer. The pen tool selected again, I'm just going to draw a mask around this bottom window here. And again, set that to none. And what we'll do is we will just go in and tidy up the placement of this mask. Get it as close as possible. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Because like I say, we're going to be adding a lot of elements to this. And when we're finished, you're not going to see any of these imperfections. But we'll get it as good as we can. And there we go. Right, so that looks all right to me. Now let's go ahead and set these masks to subtract. And there we go, we have our windows ready to do some damage to. We're just going to replace the windows with some other layers to give the impression that the windows have been smashed up and there's a room on the other side of the glass. Okay, right, if we just feather these, so if we turn off the mask and path visibility, so if you turn it off you won't see the mask lines. So what we'll do is we can zoom in now, hit the F key to bring up feather and maybe add 5 pixels of feather on that. That should be enough, and we can do the same for the other mask. Perfect. Now what we need to do is we need to add in our elements. So for this, I just went onto Google, did a quick Google search of smashed up window. I found a low-res texture. I put it into something called Topaz AI Gigapixel, which is basically an AI upscaler, and it created a bigger version of that. Okay, and let me drag that in. And we'll just pop this one here. And as you can see, it's a big broken window. And let me just solo that. And if you look carefully, you can see it looks a little bit cartoony, and that's just the AI upscaler. Just for the purposes of this tutorial, this is perfectly fine. So we're just going to get the pen tool and we're going to mask around the frame here. Okay, so as before, using the hand tool to maneuver around and then the pen tool to draw the mask, we're just going to have a look at how our mask is doing. Again, doesn't need to be perfect, but if you can get it close to, even better. And you see a little bit of gap there, so we just need to close that up. I mean, the window's not exactly straight. And if you want, I struggle to see these colors sometimes, so I'll go click on the mask color here and I'll change it to something nice and contrasty. And there we go. We can see that. So it's fine to have a little bit of the frame there, as long as you're not getting any gaps. Maybe I can just add. So Alt click that to give it a bit of a bezel. There we go. And we can add a little bit of curve there just to make sure that we're getting everything we need. And that's fine, that's fine. Move that like so. And there we go. Right, so I'm quite happy with that mask. So set that back to add. Turn off the mask visibility, and we can unsolo that. So what we want to do now is we want to pre-comp this, and then we can manipulate the pre-comp. So if we right click, pre-compose, move all attributes, and we'll call this broken window 1. Okay, right, so go into that pre-comp, and then we're going to right click the layer, center anchor point in layer content, and then we're going to do that again, but this time center in view. And we're going to try and make the comp the same size as the layer. And that will come clear why we want to do that in a minute. So if we turn transparency on, this will help us see how the comp is measuring up. So Command or Control K, bring up your composition settings. We just want to bring that down manually. So I'm probably going to guess maybe, let's say 500. Yeah, almost. I can live with that little gap around there. And let's try 1000. And yeah, again, tiny little gap. That's perfect. I can live with that. So let's go back into our working comp, and we'll drag that over to where we want to be. We're going to go to Effect, Distort, and then Corner Pin. And this is why we wanted the comp to be the same size as the layer, so that we can apply Corner Pin, and we can just simply pin the corners to the windows. And the great thing about this shot is it's locked off, which means we haven't got to worry about tracking. And I'll drag this under the background. It's already starting to take shape. You know, we've still got a lot of work to do on this, but it's starting to look the way we want it. And there we go, right. Drag that down. Let me turn transparency back on so we can see any gaps if there are any. And that looks fine to me. Let's zoom in a little bit. And that to me looks pretty good. So I'm happy with how that is placed. So what we want to do now is add some blur to the glass to make it look like it's at the same distance from the camera as the window frame and bricks beside it. So with it selected, go up to Effect, go up to Blur and Sharpen, Camera Lens Blur. 5 seems a little bit excessive, although not too much. Let's try 3. Let's go 4. Actually, that looks pretty good. And one thing I always do whenever I'm applying an effect is just quickly cycle on and off, just to see what you've done. And I think that works pretty well. And all you need to do is match the color to the rest of the shot. Here's a link to a tutorial I created where I go into more detail on this method that I use using the levels effect to match colors. So I'm just going to quickly run through that now. So Effect, Color Correction, and Levels. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at each channel individually. So Alt or Option 1 to bring up the red channel, Control 1 to bring up the red channel on levels, and we're just going to tweak the red channel so that the lightest and darkest parts of the element that we're comping in matches the rest of the shot. And we're just going to do that to the other channels as well. Go to Alt 2 or Option 2, and then you can either go down to green here or hit Control 2. Alt or Option 3 and then Control 3. Bring up the blue, and then we're just going to raise that a little bit. And if I hit Alt 3, which will be blue again, but it will take us back to RGB. And as you can see, the colors on that are quite horrendous at the moment. So we've got quite a bit of green in there. So if we go down to green, we can take that out a little bit. And as you can see, it's starting to match the other shot now. There's a little bit of red in there we need to get rid of. So just a little bit of tweaking. And we go down into the blue channel again. And again, it just takes a little bit of time to eyeball that. Make sure you're happy with it. And for time being, let me just actually not. There we have it. We have got a smashed up window. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a matte of this glass. So what that'll allow us to do is that'll allow us to apply effects to the back wall to give us a bit of separation. So if we wanted to drop an element between there, so what we'll be doing is we'll be dropping some fire. That'll allow us to control the opacity of that, so we can give it the effect that you can see the fire through the glass. So to create a quick mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the broken window layer, and we're going to rename that Broken Window 1 Matte. Collapse all these down. And then I am going to go to color correction and tint. I could probably turn off levels, and then I am going to go to stylize, and I'm going to try threshold, and we'll tweak this until we get a rough matte. So if I'm free dragging, it's a bit too clumsy, but if I hold Command, which I think on Windows is Control, or it might even be the window option. I can't remember. I haven't used After Effects on Windows in a while, but it allows you to drag slowly. So as you can see, we've got a decent one here, but this, I think, if I turn this off, yeah, it's taken too much. So we just need it to be a lot smaller. So if I go, I could probably drag this before. Let's drag it after the blur. So depending on the order of effects, you can blur the image before you do the threshold. You get a slightly different result. I want something that doesn't have to be perfect, like I say, as long as it gets the bits we want, we can always patch in. Let me turn that off and see how close that is. That's pretty good. Let me turn that off. Okay, yeah, I can live with that. That's good. So let's try it around that way again. Actually, yeah, I prefer it that way around. That looks a lot neater. We've got an issue here, as you can see, but what we can do, actually, let me check the rest of it. Yeah, that's fine. But what we can do is we can just quickly draw in a little patch there so that we've got a decent mat of that window. Right, so Command or Control Y, bring up the new solid, and we want to turn that off. Bring up the pen tool with the new solid selected, and we're just going to draw a shape around here. So we just need to feather that mask now. So hit F to bring up feather. And then I'm just going to add maybe 5 pixels. And you know what? That looks fine. Let's turn the mask visibility back on and just drag these points so that we don't have any more gaps. And that looks fine. So what we want to do now is if we pre-compose those two, and so select them both, right click, pre-compose, move all attributes, window 1 mat, and now we've got a mat we can play with. Right then, so we can duplicate the broken window 1. We'll call that one wall, and we will use our new mat as a track mat, luma mat, inverted luma mat. So now we should just be affecting the back wall. So let's go up to effects, color correction, curves, and we can drop that down. And as you can see, we are just affecting that bit there. And there you go. But what we are going to do, let's turn that one off. Going to bring in a random wall. So I've got this Envato image of a concrete wall. It's not the best, but just for the tutorial, I'm going to just drag and drop that in, and I will do the same. I'll use set that to use the track mat, luma mat, inverted luma mat, and then I'll shrink that down so we can see a bit of the floor. And then I will curves, let's lighten it up a bit just so we can see it. Lighten up the shadows, and then we can see that behind there. Again, this is just an example, but we can't see through the glass here. So what we'll do is we will duplicate this concrete wall layer, and we will parent that to the bottom one so that if we move one, we move them both. And for this, we are going to set the track mat to just use a regular luma mat, so it will just be doing the glass bit. Now you can't see any of the glass, and if we hit T, open up opacity, drop that down, and we can play around with this now so that we can maybe even darken it up so it looks like it's going, maybe even add, so if we add a little bit of green, so there's like a slight tint as the light goes through the glass. And this is all just, and like I say, this isn't going in the, and this is just an example of how I can use a mat to layer in some extra details into the shot. So, and because these two concrete wall layers are parented together, if I move one, you can move, they both move together. And as you can see behind the glass shards, you can see some detail of the wall behind it now. And you can tweak that until you're really happy. So you can maybe even set a blending mode. So let's say overlay, drop the opacity a bit more, and there you go. So if you move that around, and that looks pretty good for the effect we're trying to get. And I'll be doing this with fire in the, maybe not the next tutorial, but the tutorial after, when we get to actually putting the fire in, which actually might be the next tutorial. I might combine the next tutorial so that we can do the day for night and the fire, because I think they're going to be kind of, when we get to that stage of the compositing, those two things are going to be hand in hand, because it will look naff with just the fire on, and then, you know, once we've added the light wrap and that. And I think what I might do is, for the very last tutorial, is do all the little comping tricks, like adding a light wrap, doing the edge blurs, so that when Chris over here, when his matte is going over fire elements, you'll see like probably quite a crisp edge as he moves around. So I'll show you some tricks from another tutorial that I use to help blend those layers. But for now, this is selling it. So as you can see through the glass now. Okay, so that's it now. Like I said, this thing with the concrete wall back here isn't going to be in the final shot. This was just a demo to show you what can be achieved, and a couple of tricks for using your elements as mats for adding in extra layers. So I'm just going to turn these off and take us back to what we had before. Between now and the next one, I'm going to propagate this damage to all the other windows. The top windows I might leave as is and just change them slightly. So what I might do is have the fire coming out here, and maybe just have like a little glow coming through these windows here. I have something coming out of this door here, maybe some big flames coming out this door, and have some damaged burning debris in here somehow. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and break all these windows up, clean out this area, and maybe create some panels here that I can influence with a comp light, and give it the, basically sell the idea that the whole building is on fire. As always, I hope you found this tutorial useful. These tutorials are designed to be short and straight to the point, so that you can get in, get the information, and get on with your day. I'm always looking for new ideas to make tutorials on. Drop a comment if you have anything that you're specifically looking for, and I'll see what I can do. Until next time, thanks for watching.